What is up, everyone? We are back with the top 5 new brews. This is deck number 3, working our way up to number 1. This one is Dimir Overlord. That's what I'm calling it. You could call it Dimir Mill or Dimir Reanimator, maybe. But let's kind of go through the concept of the deck, and it will become clear. This one I think is very cool. We've got some interesting combos in this deck, and something that was missing, and now we finally found the piece to go with it. Without further ado, let's talk about the deck. So the point of the deck is to kind of be a little bit self-mill, value based off of the milling, and then also a little bit of reanimator at the end. So we start off with 9 vermin, 1 drop, which mills 2 cards. When it dies, it also does -1/-1 to a target creature. This can be, decent in the meta right now because, maybe they have bunnies or they have mono red. They can't really swing in unless they have the right pump spell to get past your gnawing vermin. It's at least a little bit annoying, and it also fills your graveyard. Stalactite Stalker works pretty well with the vermin and with other mill effects because you get it down on 1, you do a little bit of milling, and it's going to grow bigger and bigger. Optionally, you can sack it for 3 mana and kill something. I don't think you do it very often, but maybe in a pinch situation you might do that. It's also got menace, meaning you can swing in kind of past blockers a lot of times. So those are all kind of the upsides of having the Stalker in there. In the 2 mana slot, we've got Cruel Somnophage, one of the big payoffs for mill, and also an enabler because it has the adventure side where you mill 4 cards. And of note, it becomes bigger for creatures in both graveyards, so it's not just yours. So if you kill some of the opponent's creatures, you also get it bigger. We're running Bitter Triumph as one of our removals of choice. It also lets us discard, which is going to be pretty big later. And then kind of another one that's a 2-drop, Virtue of Persistence. It's got the adventure side for 2 mana to gain up some life, do -3/-3. And then the last 2-drop is Souls of the Lost. Again, something else that is the payoff for milling, and also an enabler by letting us discard, which we're going to discard our big guy at the end. Or there's a few creatures we can discard, but you can also potentially sack your gnawing vermin if you want to. Or even your Stalker if you really need to. Probably you don't want to do that very often, but it's something you could do if you want to. And then the last kind of 2-drop we have is Overlord of the Baelmerk. This is the new Overlord card. It's got the ability Impending, 1 in a black. You play it as an enchantment. It's going to turn into a creature after 5 turns. And whenever it enters or attacks, you mill 4 cards, and then you return a non-avatar creature or planeswalker from your graveyard to your hand. So, maybe you play Stalker, then you play Baelmerk on turn 2, you mill some cards, your Stalker gets bigger, you return like a Cruel Somnophage or Souls of the Lost. That's a pretty good turn, right? I mean, you got your enchantment down that's going to later turn into a creature, you grew your Stalker, you got another card in your hand. So, win-win-win. And it doesn't stop there, because at the 3 mana slot, we have Invasion of Amonkhet, which is a good mill enabler. Each player mills 3 cards. Then the opponent discards a card and you draw a card. So it's going to grow your Somnophage by milling the opponent and yourself. It's going to, it's card advantage and card disadvantage for the opponent. And then later, if we can remove the counters, we can kind of use it as like a pseudo reanimator effect, because it will turn into a 4/4 version of whatever creature is used to reanimate. And it gets the enters the battlefield effect. It gets, any of the text that's on the creature as well. So, because we're running this and we're running the Overlord of the Baelmerk, one thing they both have in common is that they have counters on them that we want to remove. And black has this nice little card called Render Inert, which removes up to 5 counters from target permanent and draws a card. And so you can use this as a planeswalker removal. There's a decent number of planeswalkers in the format with like Elspeth There's even Ral running around every once in a while, so you can use it for that if you need to, but you can also use it to kind of get your reanimation effect going, or to turn your Overlord of the Baelmerk into a 5/5 that draws you a card on turn 3. So the ideal curve would be something like Black-Tide Stalker, Overlord of the Baelmerk, turn 2, turn 3, render inert. And then now you just got a 5/5 swinging in. You're going to draw basically an extra card off of this. You're going to mill another 4, which is going to help enable your deck. And that's pretty much your Christmas land right there. You've just probably just won the game with all the value you got. So that's pretty sweet. The other option is like, you know, Stalker, Overlord, Invasion, or maybe Stock, Gnawing Vermin, Somnophage, Invasion on 3. Now your Somnophage is really huge. And Render Inert turn 4, something like that with one of the milled cards. And then, so what are our prime reanimation targets for the Amonkhet and, you know, sometimes the Virtue of Persistence? Well, we have Valgavoth, Terror Eater, the new big bad of the set. 6 black, 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 so 9 mana. It's going to be pretty hard to cast it, but it's not impossible, but it will be pretty hard to cast it. So most of the time, you're going to want to mill this or discard this. And then try to flip your Amonkhet to become your Valgavoth. And Valgavoth has flying and lifelink. If the opponent tries to kill it, they have to sacrifice 3 non-land permanents, which is pretty tricky. You know, if they don't have 3 non-land permanents, then they can't do anything. And if they do sacrifice the permanents, then those cards get exiled, and you can play cards exiled with Valgavoth, and you can spend you can spend life instead of mana to play it. So, and because he has lifelink, it kind of helps you offset the life cost. You know, that's kind of the little idea there, is you're gaining life when you swing in, and then you can use that life to pay for the cards that you exile. So obviously, you know, if oh, and I sorry, I forgot to also mention that it says if a card you didn't control would be put into opponent's graveyard from anywhere, exile instead. So after you get a Valgavoth down, if you can get the opponent to mill some with the Invasion of Amonkhet, for example, or even with Cruel Somnophage, then you exile those cards, and I believe, unless I'm reading it wrong, it could be that has to be from the battlefield. They should have worded it like that if that's what it meant, but it seems like if it goes into the opponent's graveyard and you didn't control it, meaning it wasn't under your control, then you get to exile it and cast it later. So there's other ways to get cards besides when they kill your Valgavoth. Yeah, so that's one of the prime reanimation targets. You know, you're also pretty happy to reanimate the Overlord of the Baelmerk. Comes in as a 5/5, draws you cards. Because Invasion of Amonkhet is on the battlefield, you know, it gets past the summoning sickness, and lets you swing in. So those are all, you know, really nice benefits of having these. So I don't think we're leaning too hard into the reanimation kind of stuff. We're just kind of getting value early game and turning that into even more value. And then we're running a couple harvesters. It's additional removal. You can discard it. You can also, you know, in a pinch, we can turn our invasion into a harvester. Turn 2, we use it to kill something, and then later we can use it as a board wipe. And then, as I mentioned already, we have the Virtue of Persistence, which after we cast the removal side, we can later cast the big enchantment side to get back our Valgavoth. So typically, you probably won't need to get to 9 mana ever. I mean, worst case, 7 mana will get back your discarded creatures. So that's the idea. You know, we'll have to see if we need to go a little bit more reanimation, a little bit more removal, you know, like what kind of tweaks to make, but that's kind of the concept of the deck. And even just the milling is going to buff up your 2-draw creatures here, so you won't be too disappointed with having to mill or discard things from your deck. All right, that's the main thing. We did get some new lands, the Verge deck, Verge Lands. Basically, it comes in as a dual land as long as you have a basic land. We're running 8 basics with Fabled Passage. It makes it pretty easy to get your basics. We also have the Surveil lands, so we can put stuff in our graveyard for our Somnophage and our Overlord and our Terror Eater. Get our Terror Eater into the graveyard if possible. That's it for the deck. So yeah, hope you liked it. I think honestly, there's really a lot of room to play with in the whole Dimir mill, self mill kind of archetype. Now that we got a lot of new cards from the set, and the Overlord of the Belmark is very, very nice, and I think it fits into most Dimir decks and maybe most any black decks that you can think of. But it's just a really nice addition, nice piece to the whole thing. So I'm really excited for it. That's it. So that's Dimir Overlord. Stay tuned for the next decks coming up. We've got still 2 more coming up. And then we're going to have the new set coming out. We can try out all these new decks. So I hope you enjoy. Have a blessed day and see ya.